Alrighty. So this is a quick video tutorial on, well, hopefully quick, on how to roll the spreadsheet from one event to another. Um, so when you go into an event, normally you'll see this set of two forms and a spreadsheet. And what you're going to want to do is do a make a copy. And that is going to copy all three things. I already did that step actually. So it will make something that is just called copy of these three things. And then you rename them to add the event in the front so that we have them. The other thing you'll do when you're rolling is you will be deleting all of the data out of it, or at least all of the emails and other identifiable information that we tell them that we do not keep, which I may have already done at the end of the event. So I'm not going to go through that step here. But once you have the new set, I'm going to walk through kind of how it works and what everything does and how to go through things. The index is probably not 100% up to date, but this is mostly just notes to ourselves. You're welcome to explore it. I'm trying to keep it up to date, so if you notice something wrong, let me know, or feel free to update things. Regions and stops. These lists feed to other places, including the forms and the total sheets. So regions is the locations that we're tracking, whether those remain regions or we're doing, fantasy locations, whatever it is. That list will go there. And if we're letting them fill those in, we'll figure out how to do the tracking for that in a different way. But the stop list, again, is just something that we edit. Um, and yeah, so that just changed every event. So I know for this event, I can, go ahead and remove um, some cells in there because we have fewer things. So we will update these. And normally at the beginning of the event, I'm not going to do through every step, but I will do things like I will, computer's being a little bit slow, so apologies if things stutter. So I will go through and edit all of them to just be stop and a number until we know what they're going to be, and then we will match the formatting when we actually edit them to be a thing. Um, Participant registration. Oh, I have not done that thing yet that I'm supposed to do. So I'm just going to do that real quick. We will never share this publicly, so hopefully nobody's... I might try and blur that before I post this somewhere. But anyway, that is one of the pieces of information that we want to clear. Ultimately, eventually, we will be clearing all the information on this tab so that everyone can register anew. Same with the some of the other tabs, but basically what this tab is this is the results of the sign up form. So this participation registration form goes to part reg, and the participant word count tracking submission goes to part words, which has a whole bunch of stuff on it. And then we have things like this is the query that gives us all of the usernames in their home region, which is something we need to be able to query other places. But this pulls it out of the live data feed and into a separate thing. It is also set up, as you can see, to be unique. So if someone signs up twice, it will only pull them over once. And this is pulling both columns, I believe, in a single query. And then word part is the raw data coming in from the form, and word query. You'll notice that sometimes these take a minute to calculate because this is a query. Again, this is looking for the information from that other place and just putting it in things. This is this column is set up for troubleshooting purposes. So it is just looking for the name and the stop name and concatenating that so that we can spot any duplicates. I believe I might have done some conditional formatting on this to highlight things that are duplicates, but it might just be, if you're working with somebody, you just are able to scroll to their username and be like, okay, is this a duplicate? Um, are there more than one of these? Because that's a common reason that there will be errors in the spreadsheet if they have submitted for the same stop twice. Okay. Minutes query, this is the same as the words query, but it's for the minutes tracking, because we needed to do those separately because they're querying other places separately. Similarly with stops, this is looking at the, basically it takes this information, and it's looking for the, unique participant names, and then this is counting how many times they show up. So this will give us the total number of stops that they attended. And all of that is set up so that the wonderful travel docs spreadsheets work. This again is taking a minute to load. They do that. So this is again a whole bunch of queries. So this is querying the unique users that are on participant, and that's also pulling in their region. And then these are set up to be literally addition sum formulas. I apparently don't have the sum in there because you don't have to have that in Google Docs apparently. But it's looking at the appropriate column. This is also doing the same thing. And this is doing the lookup on that stops query tab to find this username and find out how many stops they attended. And this particular thing is basically joining the username to the stop. And you will notice that everybody has 0 here because I changed stop number 1's name on that part of tab. So that means that all of these words have gone away. But on these other stops, you can see that the numbers are still there. But the array formulas are just concatenation formulas, basically. But it does it all for a whole column at once. So you'll notice that this is just a value, but this is the array, similar to a query is in this. So it's all basically a bunch of lookout formulas. So everything that you're doing to find errors is just checking, like, does this formula match, does this query match, or does this formula match that formula? Most of the time the errors that are user created, so they've submitted twice or they've done a weird thing like put a space at the beginning of their username or something like that. And then the other thing of note is all of these summations, notes, and then again sums up here. And this is actually feeding from the region stops tab. So that is make sure that this lookup key always matches what people are inputting on the form. So because I just changed that here, it means that there's no data for this stop anymore in this street, which is fine because we're about to clear all the data. And this sheet goes all the way down to stop 30 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, however many days this is, 5 days of extra time. Because when we do the 30 stop event, it's over 5 days. So we have that time to do that. And how we adjust this for being visible is we have this secondary share travel docs, which is formatted exactly the same, but it is literally just querying the same data from the same column. So it's just asking for that. And there's a lot of hidden columns, you will notice. So it's an exact replica of that spreadsheet essentially. But this allows us to be able to see everything here and not mess with the original queries. And this is just looking at data and pulling it in and lets us format it in ways that we want and, potentially put it different places. And in theory, we could pull this into a different sheet, but that's an experiment for another time. And then totals is very similar. Again, this is pulling from this region stops. So is this, which is that might not be. That's pulling from this, which is pulling from who has actually reported in. So this is only going to be participating regions that have registered rather than every region ever. And I'm not 100% sure why there's two of these. I'm sure it made sense at some point. Oh, yeah. This is the list of values, and this is querying based on that list of values. I think. But most of this is just pulling in data from the other tabs. And then we have a couple of formulas for words written per stop and some of these other things. This is all fairly straightforward formula doing, so it's just literal divisions and sums and such. And again, we have this in a public view and yeah, and because I deleted those stops, it breaks these. So that's something that I have to adjust each time. So if I go back to this one, so like this, because I deleted those stops, this has lost its reference. So what I would normally do is I just delete and add columns in this and direct them to the right place, as I am updating things. So for this particular instance, I'm just going to delete these cells. And that means that everything is all set for this to be a 16 stop thing. So that's kind of like the brief tour of the spreadsheet, but to reset the spreadsheet, what you go to is you go to part reg and you delete all the data. So the way I usually do this is to delete whole rows. So we're going to delete rows, go back to the beginning, and same with part words. We're going to find the end. And deletes rows. And that allows us to go back through and make the rest of these edits and then open the forms and do testing. So you will notice before I deleted data, the first few instances on all of the items were GWIC. And that is usually how I test. I use the GWIC email, and I use GWIC as the username, or GWIC test as the username. And basically just to make sure everything works, I register that user. I registered myself. I usually have the admin team register, so that we can see that there's stuff. And then sometimes they'll help me. Others on the admin team will help. And sometimes I'll just go through and do a bunch of submissions on my own as I'm working on the update. And once a response is received, it'll be here and they'll be here, and then they will feed to all of the things. So if I come down to travel docs, you will see it is now all lovely and blank because there's no data. But that is something that we will test in a later video. I will probably come back when I've entered some test studio and do another quick video to walk through how everything shows up and how to make sure everything is looking as good as it can. And testing has been fairly seamless the last few times because we've kind of worked the kinks out of things. such as, participant query being unique participants. And then, word query having this duplicate check. So there's things that we've built in to make it easier to make sure that everything works. So yeah, that is a brief tour of the spreadsheet and the steps that I take to update it for the next thing. The other steps are obviously to go into the forms and make sure that everything is updating correctly. So this stop list and this region list, they feed directly to the forms. And I will do that in a separate video. And we do have some of the original researches from Padawan with that information as well, but I'm going to do a condensed version on a different day. So yeah, I think that is all I have for the moment. I'm going to stop recording as soon as I can figure out where that option is in Zoom.